welcome back to the show. It's episode 306, May 16th, 2022, and I'm joined once again by my guy, Kyle Klingman, up in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Kyle, how's your weekend?
It was good, man. I know that we're grinding into World Team Trials, had the last chance qualifier, which is that final spot to get into the World Team Trials and then to Final X. So it's certainly a fun time of the year.
Yeah. World Team Trials, like you said, this upcoming weekend. Is there anything that you're most excited about?
I think just what's going to happen at 65 kilos on the men's freestyle side. That's always intriguing to me to see if we can get that guy that is going to get the first medal in that weight class since Bill Zadek. I think that's one of the ongoing storylines of the World Team Trials and what's going to happen there. So that'd be my number one to see who's going to come out of that and then how that person does at the World Championships.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, a little bit different setup this year. When the weight classes where there's no returning world medalist, you're going to wrestle to the semifinals at World Team Trials this coming weekend in Iowa. And then those two competitors who would wrestle in the World Team Trials finals will move on and do 2 out of 3 in Final X. And Final X is June 3rd in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and June 8th in New York City at the Hulu Theater, I believe is what it's called. It's at Madison Square Garden. They had Beat the Streets there. Gosh, was it 3 years ago now? Time flies.
Yeah,
it's been a weird couple of years in
yeah.
there, but this is tied again with Beat the Streets, and that's part of the reason for our guest today. Let's bring him on. Brendan Buckley, he's the executive director at Beat the Streets, and he joins us today from, I assume, New York City. How you doing, Brendan?
Doing great. We relocate. We relocated. We're in New Jersey these days, but just a train ride away from Midtown Manhattan, where we'll soon be in just over 3 weeks for Final X and our annual benefit.
Yeah, so explain the deal here. It's Final X and it's Beat the Streets. It's kind of a 2-in-1 event. How did this come about? What was the spark behind it?
We looked at doing the World Team Trials in, I think it was last year or the year before. Last year's Olympic. The year before that, may have even looked at doing the trials, but it's a lot. This year we split it with Stillwater with Oklahoma State, and so that seemed to be the right blend because there's so many matches. Our event has traditionally been a 2.5 roughly hour event where there's about 13 matches. That's sort of been the norm the last 2-3 years that we held it. As you mentioned, it's been more than 3 years since we had it at the Hulu Theater, which is, I think, the best arena, one of the coolest arenas for wrestling. There was not a bad seat in the house. And it was electric in 2019. So I was talking with USA Wrestling. We are obviously incredibly strong partners. And so I had Rich Bender on the phone and Bill Zadek and Cody, and we were talking about what is the right time for us to come back and have an event. Last year, it didn't make sense with the trials. People didn't want to risk becoming injured or anything like that relative to the trials. So we just took a pause. And so I just asked the question. I was like, well, what if, when I was talking with them, say 6+ months ago, it was, hey, what's a good time for us to do our benefit? Maybe we go back to the format of a dual meet. And what we found one of the big difficulties and challenges is creating a card. Are people going to agree when they know that you're going to see somebody 2 months later at the trials? Are they going to risk getting injured? Are they, sometimes we've even tried to, change the weight class a little bit, maybe like an upper weight versus a lower weight. And then it was becoming challenging and it was looking like we were going to have to wait until July or August. And, this is our largest fundraiser of the year. And we really needed the income for us to support our operations. And so I just asked the question, what about Final X? And then, Bill was like, hey, that worked with me. People love wrestling in New York, love supporting the mission. And Rich was on board. And so we started having the conversation. It's definitely a little bit different with 2 sessions and 15 weight, what would be a minimum of 30 bouts. And then depending on how many go to a third match. So the way it's going to be structured is at 2 p.m. That's our first session. Everybody will wrestle 1 round through. Whereas I think in 18 or 19, when they did Final X, it was 8 bouts wrestled until completion in the first session, and then 7 bouts wrestled until completion in the evening session. So I was there at Rutgers. I mean, that was a killer event. And I was like, gee, this would be really cool for us to do this. And it's prestigious. And so we just said, hey, let's run with it. So there's certain things that are a little bit easier. And there's certain things that are a little bit more challenging. At the end of the day, we're very excited. And again, didn't have to worry about creating a card, which I like that idea. And just the brand value of Final X, and the athletes love wrestling in New York. It's the biggest media, one of the top 2 media cities in the country, and certainly on the globe. And so as we started putting the pieces together, we just arrived to like, hey, we're going to do this, and then kind of coordinated with Oklahoma State, because again, we didn't want to do all the weights where we're doing a full weekend and then trying, for us, the after party is very important. That's certainly helps us with our fundraising. But that's also what makes this event so magical. I mean, you're rubbing elbows with the athletes, you're meeting their families, we're seeing Burroughs kids at the event. I mean, it's like, I'm grateful to be at Beat the Streets, and we're grateful for the opportunity. I mean, I think we put on one of the most unique, electrifying events in all of wrestling.
Absolutely. Now, is it in New York because it's tied to Beat the Streets, or was it going to be in New York anyways, and you guys like, hey, let's do a joint thing here?
I mean, the whole thing was really it was anybody's guess. I went out and I connected as it was becoming more and more likely. I connected with Rich and Bill and Cody, and so they loved having it in New York. But if Beat the Streets was going to host it, obviously it would be in New York City. Right. So we did kind of look at New Jersey too a little bit. Like one of our contacts at who used to work at MSG, who's a big wrestling supporter, is now at the Prudential Center, and so his name's Dylan Wanagil. He's put on the Grapple at the Garden. He put on this event. So that was certainly an option. But we ended up just we had already done it at MSG at the Hulu Theater. And so, so many times it would be like, okay, Times Square, Grand Central, Intrepid, Hulu, and then going back, just the rationale, we went indoors. I never wanted to experience the fear of us getting rained out at an event. I don't know that I've ever been so anxious. And then I could tell you about the whole slippage thing. We have figured that piece out, which is really, really interesting. So we could dive into that. But when we almost got rained out, it was Monday. I think our event was on Wednesday when we were at the South Street Seaport, when Chamizo Burroughs wrestled, and we had the most incredible backdrop of the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, that was cool. And so on Monday, we had to make the call. Are we going to go indoors? Are we going to go outdoors? Weather forecast looks great. Or do we want to go indoors and save us the anxiety? We were the first major event at what's called, it's Pier 17. And now it's become this major concert venue. It's a 10,000 foot deck. We were the first one. And so the indoor portion was a bit raw. And so I was like, I don't know, it might be a little dark. And so the weather looked great. It was like, it wasn't even 12 hours later, man. The sky was black as night, black as black could be. And I was like, oh no, this ain't good. This is not good. It was raining up until like 11 a.m. that day. And then, oh man, thankfully the skies cleared. And so the idea of going to Final X to Hulu was 2 things. It was primarily the weather, but equally it was us being able to just make this event more open to the masses, because our standard ticket is a pretty, it's not a $50 ticket to get
Right.
access to the after party. We're doing it in New York City. We're doing it at one of the world's most iconic venues. And so those tickets are generally like about $1,000 to get you a ticket to the match and the after party. And so we're like, hey, we want to open this up as well. And so now it's great, people that are able to purchase tickets and want to go to the after party because it's so unique, are able to do that. But if someone just wants to watch a match, they are also able to do that. And so then, we originally looked at having a cape to cover the back three sections. And then 3 weeks out, those tickets, we were going up on Ticketmaster because, we could see, hey, and then they just started disappearing. And it was really cool. Like all of our staff would get on there and we were seeing it. And so we sold it out. I mean, we didn't know if we could sell it out. And then the matchups were really crucial. And so, this is definitely, we're promoting this event and hope we'll do so again. 2019 was just it was off the hook. It was incredible. So we trust we'll be able to do the same thing, and we'll have such an incredible, there's a lot of gravity to it now. First time in 3 years, back in New York City. Everyone is competing again. There's no vaccine mandate. We're open. New York City's obviously open for business, so we're stoked.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, we pressed our luck and we got away with it for years, like a decade, right? Like going outside. And I remember rolling the mat, and I had a couple of times I had to roll the mats up because it was rainy, or one time it was even too hot. And then, I think it was the 2018 outside on the pier. I remember going up there that morning being like, it's raining. Like, it's raining. There's no way, you can't take all this and put it in. It's too late. It's either happening or it's not. And it was that like unsettling feeling. Like every year you're like, oh, it's really nice, but what if over the basement of the NYAC or this, or they're gonna wrestle but no fans, or the theater is awesome, like you said, for two reasons, right? Because you can control the weather inside, and it's just awesome. And you sold it out in one of the most famous venues on the planet. So pretty awesome for sure. Really looking forward to the event. And I guess, are we 100% back to normal with just New York City and Beat the Streets? I remember they were doing Zoom workouts, and I know the pandemic's not quite over, but it's like we're through the thick of it. As far as the organization and Beat the Streets and the kids practicing and having competitions, are they kind of back full on?
Yeah, we're back. It was really challenging. Obviously, the sport of wrestling is the worst sport for a global pandemic. New York City was, we were heavily impacted by by COVID, and so the measures were pretty intense and pretty restrictive. But we came back. I mean, our board was cautious and thoughtful, and we obviously always followed New York City's guidelines. I mean, all of our student athletes had to be vaccinated, but they were itching to get back. I mean, it took a toll. I mean, it impacted recruiting efforts to get new student athletes, both boys and girls. We historically work with 2,500 plus student athletes in all 5 boroughs. We have a training center. We have a middle school league. We are partners with New York City's athletic association called the PSAL, where we have 100 programs, 75 boys programs and 25 girls programs. So all in, kids that wrestle, you're looking at 150 programs with more than 2,500 kids. So it impacted us, but we got through it, and we've really been back since, I'm just trying to think, it's been a while, maybe fall of 2021 in terms of in person. But yeah, I mean, at the time we made a really fast pivot with the support of Beat the Streets National, where all the different chapters across the country had this goal of 1 million minutes of impact during the pandemic. So we were doing virtual workouts, I mean, in living rooms for coaches and kids. We were having leadership sort of like discussions, college coaches and athletes and USA Wrestling members. And we ended up hitting that goal, which was really, it was a quick pivot. And it was, a lot of uncertainty, but the kids stuck with us. And then once we got back in person, we were doing outdoor workouts. I mean, man, you're not doing that. Like, I grew up in Florida. Working outside is not a big deal. It was freezing. Our kids were working out. Our coaches were there with them. And then Omicron came, and we had to, we were planning a couple cool events off the mat, like fundraisers that we had to bail on. We were hoping to have our first board meeting in 2 years. We had to bail on that, and then in person shut down for a few weeks. But no, we've been back again. Restrictions are lifted. People are taking the subways. People are meeting in offices. And it's, we're really grateful to be back, to be wrestling, mentoring kids. And then we have this academy program too that we run, where we have 10 academy days where we have like 4 hours of impact. We'll have a theme of the day, which is a life skill workshop. We hire a presenter. One of our coaches will run it on goal setting, dealing with failure, managing stress and conflict, academic success, nutrition. And so we did that 10 days. We do college visits. We do a lot of like college prep and academic support. And so anyways, all of our programs, everything is back. And again, back to Final X. We're just really excited to be running an event that's so important for us, but also, marketing, partner with USA Wrestling. All these athletes, I'm sure, are excited to be competing in New York. And they've always been great in supporting our mission and talking about the importance of this event. It's much more than just an exciting wrestling event.
Yeah, and I guess to that point, right, it is an exciting wrestling event, but everything you just described, this is a fundraiser for that, right? And you guys are having huge impacts on so many kids. How do people get involved? How do they, if they want to give $1, if you want to give $10,000, whatever, what's the best way? Websites, text to donate? Give me some deets here if you have them.
Yeah, a few things. Everything about our mission, which is to help develop it's called full human and athletic potential of our student athletes and strengthen the wrestling culture. Our explanation of programs, you can see our staff, you can see our board of directors, but front and center when you go there is all the information on our annual benefit, how to go to purchase a package, go to the event, go to the after party. That's btsny.org is our website. You can follow us on all of our social, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're always looking for people that, it could be certainly, you can make a donation. It's just text. Right now, donations on our text to give all go towards our annual benefit /Final X. So again, we call this our annual benefit. Our platform has always been these unique matchups or dual meets with Japan, Cuba, Russia. But if you text Final X to 44321, that will go towards our annual benefit. Super easy. And then again, social, website, and then our text to give 44321. People are interested in doing something a little bit more, joining our board of directors, really getting involved and sort of helping us grow. We have a leadership council, which is like a junior board. And then we're always looking for someone to just drop by a training center practice, mentor a student athlete, share their wrestling story and the impact wrestling has had on their life. So, and then they can always just get in touch with me at my email, bbuckley@btsny.org. Okay,
awesome. And you mentioned the after party, the gala, the after party. It is a really cool event. It's like a who's who of wrestling people. Where's it going to be this year?
So it's at a cool venue. It's called Versa, literally across the street. Oh, in 2019, we had to do a little bit of a walk to go to this place called the Wilson. So Versa has an outdoor patio. It's really nice. It was renovated recently. I think it's on the 7th or the 10th floor. So it's literally across the street on West 35th Street, whereas MSG and the Hulu Theater. and Penn Station are all located at 34th Street, which is really kind of the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Subways go there, Long Island Railroad goes there, New Jersey Transit goes there, so it's super convenient and accessible. A buddy of mine who is a Columbia wrestling alum, for jam band fans out there, his name is Todd Schaefer. He's the lead singer for Railroad Earth. They're going to be performing at the after party. And then you get to just be around all the athletes, their families, coaches, college athletes, college coaches, New York City wrestling community. It's always a who's who in wrestling. And so it's something. And then by the time I get to that, all the anxiety and stress is washed away. So I look forward to my first beer at that time.
That's great. Yeah. And really, these guys and girls that compete that night, that come to the gala, they're going to be like the ones that win. They're going to be on the world team, right? In the prior years, you win, you match, you beat the streets, you feel good, okay. But this is like, there's a lot on the line, which I think is something that sets this one apart from years past.
Yeah, we're certainly excited for this weekend's trials. So Monday, I think Sunday afternoon, it's determined Sunday evening. So Sunday or Monday, we're going to really begin a big push. So we would really appreciate everybody getting their tickets now as opposed to 2 weeks from now. Yeah, it's ramping up. Our social media is pushing it out. USA Wrestling's pushing it out. Flow, you guys are the best. We just value our partnership so much. We appreciate all you're doing. And yeah, man, we're just excited to be back.
Sweet. And you mentioned just a little bit ago when we were talking about getting through the pandemic, you had mentioned Beat the Streets National. Can you talk to that and just how much it's grown? I know I think maybe New York was the first one, but in the years ago, there was only a couple Beat the Streets organizations, but now there's, I don't know, 20 or 30, I don't know. There's a lot, right?
There's over a dozen. It's really ramped up in the last year and a half. I think like a lot of things, Beat the Streets New York, what our origins, when we began, I don't think anybody realized what we would become. And, Mike's idea of this benefit totally catapulted us into another stratosphere of growth and growing our brand. And but Beat the Streets National, they serve to support all of the different cities, share best practices, things that New York is doing and Philly is doing and LA and Chicago are doing, and sharing that with sites, and there's more, Lancaster and Baltimore and DC, and there's what's working for us, and it's also too, though, sometimes what works in one city may not work in another, but there's some general standard operating procedures in terms of how we interact with our coaches and how we measure our impact. We're not just a wrestling club. Like it's really trying to do a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper, make a stronger impact on student athletes, and often, primarily in the communities where they just don't have access to a lot of those things. They don't have a lot of mentors, and they're in a public school system that doesn't provide the same types of opportunities and education as those in more affluent areas. We don't have parents dropping their kids off at a club practice that they're paying for and getting private one-on-ones. You're going to Beat the Streets, and a number of years ago, this guy Brandon Nunez, we had our first large division New York State champion. He hardly ever practiced with his team. They just didn't have workout partners. He was going to the training center. He was going to he'd go to the New York Athletic Club to get workouts. So it's definitely a really different type of atmosphere that we're in, and also that's why we're here.
Are there any? You mentioned some of the uniformity between the cities and organizations, and obviously some things have to be different. Are there any, like, I think, best practices or concepts that really float across all of the different cities, or things that are kind of, hey, this is one thing that every organization is going to kind of focus on or focus to at some point?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you got to have some kind of off the mat component, so it's not just wrestling. there's obviously a huge impact that's coming from the sport. I mean, at the center, we're a wrestling organization, and that's where we deliver a lot of impact. But in the public school system in New York, they're not getting a lot of support in terms of searching for a college, finding a fit, what your test scores need to be, when the dates of those tests are, tutoring for those tests, or getting all the credits that you need. Dealing with these skills that I also, we did receive. We have a financial skills workshop coming up this week. We have a career day next week. I never went to a career day, so we're really trying to deliver. And that's why we started this academy program, which we found very beneficial. But each Beat the Streets site has to do something in that realm.
Sure.
And then one thing that's kind of cool what we're doing too is we're looking to expand into Newark right now. So that's kind of an exciting venture that's approaching after we get through the benefit.
You work at Beat the Streets, which isn't just a wrestling club, but obviously there's a wrestling component to it. But you're the executive director, and do you ever get to put your shoes on and get on the mat? I mean, I work at FloWrestling. I don't get to wrestle a whole lot, but Mike Mal does, and some guys do. But do you ever get to get on the mat, or are you really just your organization and on the executive side?
Not as much as I like. I love it when I do.
Yeah.
It's funny. Emma Randall would always joke. She's like, Brendan, I don't think she was on our staff. She's always like, I don't really think they realize like you know how to wrestle. Like, so when I would show technique at a clinic, it would be cool that they saw a different side to me, the athletes. So, but I do occasionally, not as much as I like, and in the last year or so. But no, I like putting strapping my shoes on, and I mean that's why I got into this in the beginning. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm the same way, and I'm sure Klingman likes to strap his shoes on at times and throw down. Kyle, you've been patiently hanging out over there. You got any questions here for our man Brendan Buckley before we get into sweating it out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested in Fresno State and what a tragic deal that is with that program going away. That's where you went to college. They dropped it, brought it back, dropped it again. What are your thoughts on possibly getting that program back?
Yeah, it's been really, I mean, just the fact like, you get kicked when you're down. It's just hard to digest that they did it a second time. So just starting with that. And then for me, it was the fact that's the second program. I went to Clemson for 3 years. They dropped the team, and then I transferred to Fresno State. Obviously got to finish my career. But yeah, just my brother wrestled out of University of Central Florida. He used to have a wrestling program. They dropped. That's how he ended up at Clemson. Yeah, it's terrible. And then they were doing well. I mean, they were winning. They were filling the stands. It's like in most areas, they were excelling. So that being said, we were one of the early sort of casualties of the pandemic. And, when you peel back the layers of the onion and you realize like they, like so many other universities, received all this federal COVID funding. And so it's like, okay, as we got into say January of last year, it's like, hey, look, now there's a whole lot more money. Things were starting to open up. Now it's not the same environment it was when you made that sort of knee-jerk reaction to the financial impact and uncertainty that COVID was presenting. So, but we were having, we started a website, keep FresnoStateWrestling.com. We had the same PR firm that Stanford was using. We're a little bit more grassroots in terms of not being connected to Silicon Valley like Stanford was. We've now identified a former Stanford wrestling alum as a lawyer to look at some legal avenues and paths towards reinstatement. I think at the end of the day, I think a big talking point and an answer, a question they have to answer is the the vast majority of the Central Valley, where Fresno State's located, it's in addition to just being a massive and elite wrestling destination. I mean, everybody in the Central, like people know wrestling. I was kind of equated to it's sort of like a Lehigh Valley on the West Coast. You know, you have a Division I program there that had 47 or 8 Division I NCAA All-Americans. That dominated the conference we were in. That was recruit, had 4-time All-American, 3-time finalist in Jerry Abbas, and 3-time NCAA champ, 4-time All-American in Stephen Abbas, a silver medalist. Like, wrestling is a big deal. But I think the bigger thing is like all these student athletes that are people of color and Latinx that was their opportunity to participate earn a college degree, and they're blue collar people. It's just a part of Fresno's kind of like a Midwestern culture, big agriculture. And so it made sense why wrestling was so important and popular. And so for those families now, they, like the guy, I think who's from Bullard, where'd he go? Oklahoma, maybe. One of the biggest recruits in the country. He was going to Fresno State, So anyways, it's kind of picked up again in the last couple months. So time will tell. Optimistic. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got to know about Dennis DeLito. I always saw this guy had the raspy voice. Being coached by that dude, what was that like?
He's an intense guy, man. Yeah, he's an intense dude. But he was great, man. He's motivating, and I'm nothing but grateful for the opportunity he presented to me and took great care of me. And then it only increased as I got into my college career. I always had him as a reference. He always called any, whether it was at UC Davis or University of Virginia, Columbia, Cal Poly, he was always the first guy to make a call to the AD to tell them why I had to be hired. And I would call him when I was at Cal Poly. We were talking, like 2-3 times a week. And I mean, nothing but respect. He kind of single-handedly brought the program back the first time. So I never count him out. And so that's why I got faith in our return.
All right, unless Mark has anything, I have a series of 5 questions for our game called Sweat It Out. Are you ready to play Brendan Buckley in advance of Beat the Streets New York?
Sir.
All right, let's do it. Number 1, name one of the 2 Yankees baseball players that were involved in a wife swap in 1973.
What?
I'm serious. This happened.
They just swapped wives?
They swapped wives and kids.
Sounds like a reality show.
I mean, it happened, man.
Are these prominent? Are these prominent players?
I mean, the one had the best ERA in old Yankees stadium history, so not the most prominent, but you're a Yankees fan, I think. So I want to see what
Gossage?
No, you're not going to get it. Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich.
Okay, definitely wouldn't have got that.
Can we? Did they stay swapped, or did they
I think
divorce?
I think one did. I think one stayed swapped and the other didn't work out. So
was it planned, or is it? Do you know?
Planned. It was planned. Yeah, they planned.
Now, did you know this coming in? Did you know this factoid coming in?
I did, because when I was at the Gable Museum, we had the guy come as one of our celebrities. Fritz Peterson came, so I did all the homework on that, so I knew about that. So I actually did know that coming into this.
That's
you stud.
We could do a whole. I got a bunch of questions, but that's.
I hope these next 4 are a little easier.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Number 2, what game show host beat up Happy Gilmore in the movie Happy Gilmore?
Oh, Barker.
You got it.
Bob Barker.
Number 3, what country music superstar threw javelin at Oklahoma State University?
Wait, say that again. Country music. Is this the guy who did all my friends in high places?
Well, friends in low places, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. My bad. Wait, don't.
The Thunder Rolls.
Um,
Just like the quintessential country
Country music
star in the 90s and
Sold out Central Park.
oh man, I got it.
Played with
starts
Billy
with a
Joel.
G.
Yeah, you come on, you got it.
Yeah.
Hold on. Can we come back to that?
Yeah,
Sure.
I like that.
We'll come
I like
back.
that.
We'll
We'll put a
come
pin
back.
in
Yeah,
it.
no one's ever
Okay,
asked.
it'll come to
I
me.
like that.
I'm
That's fast. All right.
too focused on it right now.
Number 4, what fraternal twin brothers from Port Jervis, New York won Olympic gold medals at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics?
I'm sorry. Say it again. What?
Name the fraternal twin brothers from Port Jervis, New York that won Olympic gold medals at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics.
Is that the Bannock's?
Yep. You got it. Number 5, and then we got to go back to your question 3. Who did you defeat at the 1997 NCAA Championships of the Unidome in Cedar Falls, Iowa, which is right over there, for 7th place?
Francis Dunn.
Yep.
What
Francis
school?
Dunn.
Ryder.
Got it. And then you're back to your country music
I think I
superstar
got
if you
it.
want to. All right.
Garth Brooks.
Yep.
The G brought me back.
All
You
right.
got
Is
it.
that 4 out of 5?
That's 4 out of 5. Nice work.
Slow start, but a strong finish there.
I
Buckley.
gotta be honest. I knew he was tied to OSU. I didn't know that he threw the javelin.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
And I think he mowed the lawn at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame too. I think he used the rider mower and mowed the lawn right there. So another wrestling connection.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's great. All right, Brendan, 4 out of 5. I'd say that's a pretty good score. And we're pumped up for June 8th. Beat the Streets, combined with Final X in New York City. Any parting words from you? Anything you want to say before we let you move on with your day?
Buy tickets. Get to the event. Don't miss out on this. New York is back. Our student athletes need the support. You'll feel good about what you're doing and seeing some high level wrestling. We have 7 Olympic medalists and world championship medalists. We got Taylor, Dake, Burroughs, Maroulis, Hildebrandt, Miracle, and Hancock. So we're excited. We're going to have cool merchandise for sale. Jeff Riccio is our guy. If you follow him on Instagram, you see all the cool digital artwork he does.
Heck yeah.
We'll have signed posters. We got some cool T-shirts. And then we're going to have 2 to 3 surprise guests, just like we did in 2019 when Henry Cejudo and Dan Gable, we had an autograph line. So we'll be announcing that too. And thanks for having me on, guys. And it's going to be here very soon.
Yeah, can't wait. It's right around the corner. Brendan, thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you here in I think it's like a couple of weeks from now. So thanks so much for showing up today.
All right, guys. Thanks. Go Flow. Appreciate it.
You bet.
See
All
ya.
right, Kyle. Another good one in the books. I thought it's really cool to hear about Beat the Streets being back, New York City being open, and how we're tying Final X and Beat the Streets together in the Hulu Theater. It's going to be off the hook.
I can't wait. Can't wait for this weekend. Love your backdrop there. You see you have mountains instead of the Bader Show and some mushrooms. So
great.
Glad you're mixing it up.
That's not me. That's super producer Tyler. Big fan of the
I
Boston
like it.
Celtics. Okay. Well, we'll see if we can keep it. Aw, puppy. All right, folks. That's going to do it for today's show. For Kyle Klingman, I'm Mark Bader. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.